The fluorescent lights of the suburban New York supermarket hummed quietly. As Sarah maneuvered her small cart down the aisle, she had been up all night with her newborn, her eyes heavy and her body exhausted. Every item in her cart was carefully chosen, a careful balancing act between necessity and price. She counted coins in her pocket more times than she could remember, trying to make sure she could at least buy enough formula to feed her baby for the week. But when she reached the checkout counter, reality hit harder than she expected. The total was more than she could afford. Her hands trembled as she tried to remove items, her heart sinking. When she realized she'd have to return the baby formula, the one thing she could not go without, the cashier, a young man with kind eyes, tried to reassure her, but Sarah shook her head. "I don't have a choice," she whispered. Tears welled up, and she hugged the box of formula for a last moment. Before reluctantly placing it back on the shelf across the aisle, Michael, the CFO of a major tech company, noticed the scene. He had stopped by the supermarket on his way home from the office. Dressed in an impeccably tailored suit and shiny leather shoes, life for him had always been a series of meetings, spreadsheets, and boardroom decisions. He was used to negotiating million-dollar deals, not witnessing quiet heartbreak in the baby aisle. But something about Sarah, her exhaustion, her vulnerability, and her love for her child stopped him mid-step. He hesitated for a moment, considering the social norms he usually followed. But then he did something completely unlike himself. He approached her. "Excuse me," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "I couldn't help but notice." "Are you okay?" Sarah looked up. Startled by the stranger, her eyes, red from tears, met his. She hesitated, unsure if she should speak to him. Strangers in the city were often indifferent or, worse, opportunistic. But there was something different in his expression, a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold lights of the store. I can't afford it," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I have to return the formula." Michael didn't pause without hesitation. He stepped forward, reaching for his wallet. "Let me take care of that," he said, handing the cashier his card. The transaction was swift, and soon Sarah held the formula in her arms again. She looked at Michael in disbelief. Why would you do this?" she asked. Barely able to form words, he smiled gently, shrugging as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sometimes helping someone doesn't need a reason. You just do it. Sarah's hands shook as she clutched the box. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of hope, and for Michael, watching her relief, something stirred in him too. A curiosity and compassion he hadn't felt in years. That simple act in the middle of a supermarket aisle was the start of something neither of them could have anticipated. After the supermarket incident, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had helped her. She felt a mixture of gratitude, disbelief, and cautious hope. Who is this man? And why had he cared enough to step in when no one else would? She had learned to survive alone, to hide her struggles behind a mask of composure. Yet his simple act of kindness cracked that armor, just enough to remind her that someone, somewhere, still cared. Meanwhile, Michael returned to his sleek Manhattan apartment that evening. But the memory of Sarah's tired eyes lingered. He had witnessed her exhaustion, her desperation, and her unwavering determination to care for her child. Despite the odds, Michael, who had spent years immersed in the cold precision of financial reports and corporate strategies, found himself thinking about something that couldn't be quantified: human connection. Her situation struck him deeply, and for the first time in years, he felt a personal responsibility beyond the balance sheet. The next morning, Michael couldn't shake the urge to reach out. He didn't know if Sarah would trust him, but he decided to try. Through a note left at the supermarket with the cashier, his number included, he offered to help with anything she might need. Advice, resources, or even just someone to talk to. He didn't expect a reply. He only hoped she would feel safe enough to respond. A few days later, Sarah called. Her voice was hesitant but polite. "This is Sarah. I'm not sure if I should." Michael cut her off gently. "It's okay, you don't have to explain. I just want to help in any way I can. No judgments over the next few weeks." Their conversations grew more frequent. Michael listened to Sarah talk about her struggles, finding reliable childcare, managing bills, balancing work, and caring for her infant alone. He didn't impose solutions, but suggested practical ways to make life a little easier. He connected her with community programs that provided food, childcare assistance, and support for single mothers. He even helped her update her resume, and guided her on applying for a better-paying job. Sarah was cautious at first, unsure why a wealthy stranger would care so much. But Michael's consistency and genuine concern gradually built her trust. He never asked for anything in return. He only wanted to see her succeed. The bond between them grew slowly, grounded in honesty and mutual respect for Michael. Watching Sarah slowly regain hope became unexpectedly fulfilling. He had always been driven by numbers, profits and achievements, yet helping her reminded him that the most meaningful impact in life often comes from compassion, not contracts. Every small victory, Sarah landing a part-time job, finding affordable childcare, seeing her baby smile felt like a personal triumph. One afternoon, Michael visited her modest apartment, bringing groceries and supplies for the week. Seeing the relief on her face, the warmth of her home and the laughter of her baby, he realized that their lives were now intertwined in ways he could never have predicted. What had started as a chance encounter in a supermarket aisle was evolving into a bond that neither distance nor social barriers could sever. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Michael and Sarah deepened in ways neither had anticipated. Their relationship remained respectful, grounded in mutual trust. Sarah no longer felt alone. In navigating the harsh realities of single motherhood, Michael had become a quiet pillar of support, someone she could rely on without fear of judgment or expectation. He celebrated her victories, large and small, and offered comfort during the inevitable setbacks. Sarah's confidence began to grow. She secured a better-paying job at a local nonprofit, balancing her responsibilities with more stability. The community programs Michael had introduced her to proved invaluable, helping with childcare, groceries, and medical care for her baby. For the first time in her adult life, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she could thrive, instead of merely survive. And though Michael never imposed himself, his steady presence offered a sense of security she had longed for. Since her baby was born from Michael, the experience had been transformative. A man accustomed to the rigid structure of corporate life, he had found unexpected fulfillment in acts of kindness that carried no financial reward. He discovered that true success was not measured by stock prices or profit margins, but by the positive impact one could make on another person's life. Sarah's resilience inspired him in ways that boardroom victories never could. He began to reassess his priorities, seeking more balance between work and meaningful personal connection. One chilly afternoon, Sarah invited Michael to a small birthday celebration for her baby. The modest apartment was filled with laughter, the scent of homemade food, and colorful decorations crafted by Sarah herself. Michael watched as the baby crawled toward him, tiny hands reaching up with trust and curiosity. Sarah's eyes met his across the room, and without words they shared a moment of profound understanding. The child's innocent joy symbolized everything they had worked toward together, a life no longer defined by struggle, but by hope, care, and opportunity. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah expressed what she had long felt but never fully voiced. "Michael, you didn't just help me with money or resources. You helped me believe in myself again." "I don't know how to thank you," Michael smiled softly, the weight of his own emotions pressing gently against his chest. "You don't need to thank me." He said, "You did the hard part. I just reminded you that you're not alone." The chance encounter in the supermarket aisle had blossomed into something extraordinary, a friendship built on compassion, trust, and quiet heroism. For Sarah, it meant survival and a path to a brighter future. For Michael, it meant rediscovering the humanity he often overlooked in the pursuit of ambition, in a city where people often rushed past one another. Absorbed in their own lives, two strangers had crossed paths at the perfect moment. One act of kindness had grown into a life-changing journey, proving that even in the busiest, most impersonal of places, compassion could create ripples that transformed lives forever. And in that small, humble apartment, with a laughing baby in her arms and Michael standing by her side, Sarah realized something beautiful. Sometimes the simplest gestures, like buying a box of formula, can change everything.